Anyone who's actors, lovey, fuck it. I love you.
I love love.
Yeah, me too.
Hamlet and Hamnet. Yeah, Hamlet. Hamnet, that's the name of my film. Waymo.
I hate it every time I see one of those.
Oh my God.
Like, well done, humans.
I'm so happy to
So
see
well. Come on, we
you.
have a hug then. I'm so happy for you. For so many
Oh
reasons.
my
What's your
God.
noggin? What's your noggin?
I'm overly shy and thrilled.
I'm shy as well because I watched the Hamnet last night and I started it at about 1 o'clock in the morning, so thereby ended, of course, at 3 a.m. And I was astonished. I worked with Peter Mullen once.
Amazing.
There's no one better. And then I went to the Screen Cinema and I saw My Name is Joe and I saw him in that and I couldn't really talk to him the next day. And I had a bit of that this morning when I woke up. I was like, oh, geez, do I have to see this one? Do I have to see her now? Do I have to see her and sit in front of her and talk to her about what? About anything? But no, delighted to be here. But I was like, what is it? Is it intimidation? Is it, what is it? But it's just like, honest to God, it's just awe at what you all went through. This is a moment already, we're only 3 minutes in, where anyone who watches this shite can go, what you went through, actors, all that kind of nonsense, which I get, but just the level of the dignified perspective of a pain that I don't understand, but I've imagined because I'm a father and you're a mother, and I've imagined, as I think any parent does imagine, what is the worst thing that could happen to you in your life. It's that which could happen to that which you love the most, your children, and that which you are contractually, as a result of just the practical experience of living and the spirits and all of it, you are gifted with taking care of and offering shelter and love if something happens to that child. And the dignity with which that pain is explored in the film, and also just the last 10 minutes of it and the amount of healing. I just didn't think that the film could turn around as extraordinarily as it does and have as much healing and as much forgiveness and as much understanding and as much as the acceptance of the cost of love sometimes, as it does at the end.
I think, isn't that what stories are? Like, they allow those bits that are too hard to hold by ourselves to transcend and come through. And the same with yours, like with the kind of race of addiction and ego and trying to run from a life. I don't know, was there catharsis, or was it intense doing that?
Doing that thing?
Yeah, the ballad.
Yeah, I mean, I was wrecked by the end of it in a way that one should be.
But isn't that a great feeling?
Yeah.
When people say, was that hard? I'm like,
Can't
you
say,
joking?
Yeah, but it's a beautiful difficulty. Like, it's a...
Oh, and you're trying to touch the edges of whatever the deepest truth of that is meant to be. And you are really just touching the edges of it.
Totally. How did you survive this one? Because it's so, I mean, even from the opening shot, it's so beautiful. And all he did so extraordinary. It starts with that beautiful image of the sky through the foliage of the canopy of the trees, and then it comes down this beautiful, complex route, which is like the history of civilization in itself, and then it looks down on you, and you're like an embryo about to be born, curled up on the... And I feel like your character goes through these very clearly defined chapters in her life where she grows into something else, and she grows into something else, and she's already living in the mystery of communion with nature in a way that is besmirched by the community, but is very deep and holy within her, and is a direct connection to her mother.
I know who you are.
Who am I?
Well, I don't know you, but I've heard.
I'm the daughter of a forest witch.
And then she's birthed into romantic love, and then she's birthed into commitment, and then she's birthed into parenthood, and then she's birthed into marriage, and then the ultimate birthing for us all, perhaps, which is why it's so crushing, is that she's birthed into unimaginable grief and loss. So her journey is all these kind of full lives that are expressed and lived. And how the hell did you survive it? Because it's really painful stuff to watch, just really as a human, not as an actor who's about to talk to an actor in 12 hours time, 3 o'clock in the morning last night. It's 1 p.m. now, kids, so the math is not what it ever was. I know you gave fully of yourself, but what was it like to work on it? Because it's such true material.
I try whenever I step into the world, just okay, I'm just going to be in this river for like 6 weeks
Mm.
with the lightest of touch. I don't ever want to, I always feel like I want to meet, from the first moment you read a script to where it ends up being in front of an audience, it starts as a stranger that you want to have the greatest love affair with.
Mm.
And I met Chloe Zhao before I read the book, and there was just something about this woman. I knew this woman actually so deep
She lived in you
inside
already.
me. And yet she was, like all these characters, mysteries.
Yeah, yeah.
You will live.
Make sure nothing ever takes you away.
I always have to have a level of unknowability and something scary, to touch that grief is, I was like, I don't know where to go.
Yeah.
Where do you even begin with that? And I had just come back from filming Bride in New York, and I was like cracked, wide open, broken. And Chloe just really wants you to be as present as you possibly can. And she's like that too, she's working to meet the material herself
Yeah,
in
I
that
know.
way. And the way she works is so like making a soup, She wants you to be present. She wants the whole world to be present, like the crew, everything. And you're all just stepping into the vibrations of what is the most essential essence and potent essence of each scene. And what happens within it is none of your business, And I don't want to project any idea of what a
Yeah,
grief
yeah.
like that would be, or who this woman is with this man, with these children, until I actually am in those scenes. And so a lot of the stuff, I didn't know where it was going to
So you
take
didn't
me.
rehearse much at all? You spoke a little bit,
We hardly spoke.
Yeah.
It was like a language that felt right for this character, and we started being very conscious of our dreams.
Ah, lovely, yeah.
And they became kind of tools for me to, in an abstract way, fever dream around the scenes in some way. And that became the thing. I would like fever dream write every night before the scenes and then send them to Chloe, send a piece of music and not talk about it at all. And then if they showed up, great. And, I don't know if they showed up. Bits of them showed up. I could see bits of those things.
Yeah.
But I think if I'd come in and tried to put some idea of what this person was, I mean, that's her whole thing. She's kicking back. She's so like engaged with her body, with her ancestry, with life and death.
She's so alive to the moment, every moment.
Yeah, with her mind, with his heart, with his capacity, with, and in a very simple way of touch. Like to touch someone's hand is like,
Yeah.
we do it all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's so intimate and raw.
Yeah.
And you can get so much knowledge from just single touch, which is such a wild, like to do that now is such a wild, to do it any time is so wild. But having been born from the root of this tree, she's like tangibly alive and connected to her body. And it wasn't about surviving this, it was about like connecting the tissues, And maybe in the bits around Hamnet's death, I knew I had to go to a place. I think it's hard when you feel like blocked or in your head or on your own.
Yeah.
When you're on your own,
Yeah.
I think that's when it feels hard. But when you're in a community where the kind of valve of creating something is so open that whatever feelings are needed to come out, or relationships that you're like trying to be in and hold with each other can contain the heart, those tough things. It's never, I feel more awake by those things.
Yeah,
than,
yeah. Giving up the idea of ownership as well, of the human experience being an individual experience.
Yeah.
You're saying that it is inevitably a communal experience. Even if somebody is living a life of isolation or aloneness, they are doing so as the result of somebody walking by them and not paying them attention.
Yeah.
And so the lack of communal can be painful. But in doing what we're lucky enough to do over the years, you get to work with a community of filmmakers in front of and behind the camera, and you get to share all the uncertainties, and you get to share the curiosities, and you get to share whatever love or whatever lack of love you may have felt in your life. You get to bring it to work. It's a really beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't understand it. I'll leave it there. I don't understand how there's such a way to be able to practically provide for those you love by doing something that we did so naturally as children, and that was that we were asked to step away from, which is
Yeah.
try and contextualize the mystery through the seeming artifice of drama, but ironically finding truth at the center of that drama.
Do you remember the first time you saw the mystery? Like you saw as a kid, like what was the first, or like a film or theatre that you were like, I don't know what this is, but like you can almost touch the mystery of it and feel like I want to peek in behind that door.
I remember I was horrified seeing Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Did you ever see it?
No.
Oh, it's magic. It's great, an earlier Spielberg film. I was raised on Steven Spielberg films, and John Williams kind of raised me through his scores. But in that film, and in a lot of his films, there was a central dysfunction of family dynamics. And then there was all this exciting sci-fi stuff or adventure stuff happening around it. But there was the Richard Dreyfuss character in it, the father of the family, who has a nervous breakdown in it. And there was a certain aggression and a certain tension and a certain inevitable disassociation that came between him and his family. I remember being shocked by that as a kid because I was
Yeah.
there to be entertained, and I was entertained. But there was also something that was very painful and very truthful at the center of this film that was a big Steven Spielberg sci-fi film about aliens arriving
Yeah.
to planet Earth. And that's why it worked, and that's why it went in so deeply. So that was the first time I remember being shocked, seeing elements of my own family life
Yeah.
represented on the screen. And it didn't have any definitive answers or anything, but it was that thing of just feeling less alone.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I struggle to say that what we do for a living has any importance, right? Because I'm Irish, and you don't want to see people to think you're taking yourself all that stuff too serious. But at the same time, then I remember me as a kid and how less alone I felt by watching other lives be explored on a screen,
Yeah.
whether the screen was big or small. But do you remember the first time the mystery revealed itself to you? The power of story or mythology or
Yeah,
written
I
form or-
do. I remember we didn't have a TV till I was like a teenager. So,
Mm.
and telling stories is so part of an Irish identity
Yeah.
in so many ways. But I remember I went to my local town hall when I was about 7 for an amateur dramatic production of Jesus Christ Superstar. And they'd like taken the,
Which I love.
yeah. And they'd taken the like church pews and put them into this hall. And I was so confused because there was like this sound in this hall, like a beehive, like all these people who'd come gathered, you know, Mary, Johnny, and they were all coming here like a kind of pilgrimage. Not really for any conscious reason. They were just coming together. And then it started. I was so sure that a man had been crucified in front of my eyes in the Áras Pádraig in Killarney. I was bereft. Like I was wailing on the ground. And my mom had to like bring me backstage to meet
Wow.
Johnny, whatever his name was. And it was the first time I saw the like Pandora's box, you
Yeah.
know, and I could see the women in the dressing room taking off their tights, and this man shook my hand. It was like all of a sudden both realities were true. Like it was true that he had died in front of me, but it was also true that he was just somebody who'd waved a magic wand. And what's mysterious is that unspoken effect between a story and a person.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess, at the end of Hamlet and Hamnet. Yeah, Hamlet. Hamnet, that's the name of my film. Where she's so kind of outraged that he has stolen something so personal of hers.
Yes.
A grief, like how dare he?
Yes.
And give it to people that she doesn't know, having
He's
left.
actually reshaped it with grace.
Yeah, and he's created this
Yes,
portal for
yeah.
something that she can't process by herself. You know, she's becoming calloused in some way.
Yeah.
We need these bigger places to like let those things out.
And to give the community an opportunity to present itself as something that could be fundamentally more loving than it seems to be, particularly in contemporary world. Like that scene at the end when Hamlet's hand is and you reach your hand and then everyone else is given permission to reach out to him with a gesture of love and support.
Yeah.
in his final moments. It's so huge. That's the bit that kind of broke me in half as well.
Yeah.
Was not just the pain, because somewhere inside, as horrific as pain can be to observe, whether it's in the real world or even in dramatic contexts that are presented to us, whether it's a piece of art or music. I mean, the nature of daylight that is used. Oh my God, that piece of music is so, and why it was written and what, like Max Richter's all over that film
Yeah.
as well. The leaning into each other seems to be such an essential aspect of the human experience that is very easily lost in a world where we are taught about the individual. And so grief is, as painful as it can be, what's born of grief, the transcendence of coming together, the ability for one person to observe another person's grief and not actually try and heal it,
Yeah. And like in your,
just observe and just be present in the company of grief and be present in the company of loss,
yeah.
present in the company of sorrow.
And you see how hard, I mean, your film, and you're so extraordinary in it. And I can't even imagine how much you must have sweated in that film. Like, how dangerous it is to feel and how much we pad ourselves up with consuming and money
Yeah.
and like, you know, what that whole film, and I'm so
Uncertainty.
uncertainty. And I guess, and you keep talking about loneliness and how in some ways you can protect yourself by being lonely or create a kind of cave for you to hide in an idea, in an idea of yourself that is so full, like a kind of facade.
Yes.
A gambler with a pair of lucky gloves, washed up on the shores of Macau.
When you meet your beautiful, like, woman who dies in that,
Yeah.
and you can just feel like, oh my God, I can touch something so real. It's so scary. I'm going to cry even. Like, yeah, how scary it is to feel and how much we run as fast as we can away from it in our lives. And then
Totally.
when you're faced with your mortality or faced with your absolute ruin.
Yeah, I think the permission to be overwhelmed is a huge thing to give to each other, to give to our kids, to observe in our parents if they experience it. We're
Yeah.
at a certain stage where we can almost parent those who brought us into the world, which inevitably, if you're lucky enough as a child, will happen someday, that you'll be able to actually, in real world affections and attention and consideration, be able to return a little bit of what our parents have done for us.
Yeah.
But it's that thing about I think, and I know I sit here, I'm so fucking aware of the amount of privilege that I've experienced in my life and what rare air I fly in regards to what I do for a living, how I've been able to provide all that stuff. I'm really aware. But at the end of the fucking day, there's nothing I can do in acting. There's no check I can get that can make, and sorry to pull this out, that can make James talk or have language, my oldest boy. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're all, regardless of the facade, regardless of how the life seems to be, just every T is crossed and every I is dotted ever so perfectly. It's a mess.
Oh, it's chaos.
It's a mess.
But don't you think that's, I
and
feel,
to be given permission
to be in the mess.
To be in the
and
mess.
That's our job,
and
is
not
to
have
be,
the answer.
Absolutely.
Like, lean into the mystery and know that feeling is only destructive when it is attempted to be oppressed or ignored. That's the only time feeling is really destructive.
And the more I do this, the more I realize the job is to become more human.
Yeah.
And more take your hands off the steering wheel. And like, how do you
drive hands-free?
Yeah.
Foot on the gas.
Waymo.
Foot on the gas. Yeah.
Which are mad.
I hate it every time I see one of those.
Oh my God.
Like, well done, humans. There'll be 50,000 drivers unemployed within the next 2 years. Well done.
How do you travel to be unconscious like that and become more human and become like scared?
And like,
maybe it's not fear. I don't know what is it like. What's the journey to create? Like, I'm curious. Why did you want to do Ballad? Like, what was the texture of what this character was that you were like, oh, I think I can go into that place now, because it's really intense.
I mean, I do find that joy, of course, is beautiful, and I have mad moments of joy in my life, and joy in work, and joy with my kids, and I think that I've always felt that the common denominator in regards to experience as humans is pain. Like the one thing we've all felt
Yeah.
really is pain. And I put fear and uncertainty under that banner. Not everyone, sadly, has felt joy. Not everyone is born into a situation where they can experience even a moment's joy from the start, and that's a
Yeah.
great tragedy. But so I'm fascinated with pain, and what pain, I think every single kind of misdeed or every single act of aggression or violence has its root in some kind of either personal or lineal pain that has become personalized. And so I just find pain to be kind of one of the defining characteristics of the human experience. And when I read Ballad, it was a character that there was no reason, there's no backstory given in the script. He just was somebody who was drowning beneath this certain kind of agitative pain and uncertainty that I couldn't really figure out when I read it, and I created and concocted whatever fiction for myself in regards to backstory. But yeah, I just found it really interesting. I just wanted to explore it. The nature of addiction. I've had a history of addiction and bits of depression and anxiety and the whole smorgasbord of human frailties as well. I didn't feel clinically like I'm ready to do this now or I have enough distance for, because of course inevitably you're always drawing from your own personal experience, but I didn't feel like I was drawing from the experience I had with addiction, which was very particular at that time, and this was very different. Because it's the human beneath the addiction, and obviously the addiction is just a consequence of certain things unanswered or certain uncertainties that are too fearful to even comprehend, so you pretend that they're not there, and you pretend that you have answers where you don't have any business having an answer at that particular point. You just have to sit in the mystery and the uncertainty of it all, and sit with the agitation and the sorrow and the fear of that.
I remember your character in the film says in Macau. I mean, that must have been amazing to shoot there, because it is a kind of fantasy land.
Yeah.
And your character at one point says, I can be invisible here. I can create anything of
Yeah.
myself. Something like that.
Yeah.
And how exciting, you know, to be able to recreate yourself unrecognizable, you know, in some way.
That's just a part of the fucking major excitement about what we do, I think.
Yeah.
I've even heard actors say, and I think I make up that they're uncomfortable with, as I've experienced my own discomfort in this way, uncomfortable with saying, no, there's worth to what I do. Okay, not as much worth as there is with brain surgeon, and I get it, like, but there is worth. It's really important as human beings that we share stories, because we can't share very often in a peaceful way what we say is reality. So at least in a peaceful way, let us create this drama together, and maybe we can find truth, and we can sit in a bipartisan way that is beyond ideologies and beyond politics in a dark room together and have an emotional experience. We don't have to talk about it. But that alone is a kind of a binding experience, you know?
I feel like I've found an education and discovered something that I didn't recognize or see when I was younger through the stories that I've been lucky enough to play through, and the women that I've been lucky enough to play through. And I never want to let any of them go. There's no letting go of a character for me. I'm like, thank you. You can stay right here, you're there,
on the canvas.
you're there. And all the textures of what they are have woke me up to myself and the world, and create a bigger landscape and an equal, you know, and an empathy and a humanity.
All of it.
And a love and a, you know, you still fight with it.
It's magic, yeah.
Sometimes I find it hard to like do the day, get in the car, come home, be like, how was the weather today? You know, what did you do? And I just knew for those 2 weeks of filming that I just like needed to just stay around that material. It's 2 weeks. And so I said to my husband, I'm going to just book somewhere near the studio and just stay here for 2 weeks. Because I just need to just give it its commitment.
Just be beneath that cloud for a while.
Out of respect for what it must be like for a parent to lose a child. Like,
and you're lost in trying to figure out how to honour such a horrific thing as that grief.
And I always want to just come with the lightest of touches into everything I do, you know. As much curiosity as I can.
Yeah.
Be brave enough to be seen, you know, and to let something be seen in just its absolute essence of the moment.
What do you see?
I see you grown, very strong.
Chloe's very like that as well. You know, if something doesn't serve a moment, she just it lets it go, and you have to discover the new thing. And
Lovely. Oh my God, such
I
freedom.
actually, did you have that experience on with Terrence Malick,
Yeah, it reminded me a lot
which is
of
such a beautiful
the
film?
New World.
Oh my God.
It reminded me a lot of that visually, and also to be at the center of this experience of love and to want to capture it like a bird in your hand and hold it and make sure that it's never lost to you
Yeah.
again. But that's impossible.
What was that like making that?
God, it was extraordinary. It was extraordinary. It was so alive. We shot it kind of in continuity. There was a script and there was an outline, and when I read it, it was very moving, but I don't know if it was 60 pages or 100 pages, The New World. But it was, I mean, objectively, it was this incredibly powerful moment, the implications of which, of course, are still being experienced in America and around the world. And it was the arrival of Europeans into the continent of North America. But the arrival was an Eden because it hadn't been soiled yet. There
Yeah.
hadn't been conflict yet. So there was a sense of hope and there was a sense of discovery in this beautiful Eden that America is, by virtue of its extraordinary nature and the bounty of its land. But I loved working with Terence. He was very curious himself. Like, to have a director, I suppose, I feel like it's lovely to be with a director who knows what they want to do in a way, and they have an idea of what the film's, of course, going to look like, and they, in this case, in Chloe's case, it adapted or written the script. But you can also feel from them that they are willing to be as lost in the waters of uncertainty as you are.
Yeah.
And that's
Oh
lovely.
my God. I mean, when you
'Cause-
get somebody that you
oh,
can be in that space with as a
it
director, you're
really
like,
is lovely. And
it's a whole other
and
experience.
there's no wrong.
No. And you're
And
sharing.
I've worked with directors that you do a take and they go, "Meh," and maybe I'm weak, but the "meh" thing kind of gets me a little, it doesn't take much to get me shoulders up around my ears.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Where you get a director go, "Good, and what about this?" And okay, let's just go again. And
Yeah.
so that there's no wrong, there's just these moments, just moments that are cascading one into the other. It was never about an end result. I wouldn't be horrified if you told me that Terry Malick was in Virginia now just picking up a couple of shots to put back in the film. Do you know what I mean? It feels like
That's
it still
amazing.
lives on. And so there's a certain point where you have to kind of turn your back on the story and go back to your own life and walk from it. And you know then that it's going to go through a process called the edit and all that kind of stuff. But it's a lovely feeling when you feel like the thing is never fully finished.
Yeah.
And I think that's in turn as well, as you say, that character goes there, this character goes there. They all become just a part of, because I was thinking about this when I was saying earlier about actors saying, and actors that I love as well, I've seen them go, I just lie for a living. And I'm like, I get it. It's cute. I kind of want to say the same and take the piss out of it all.
Yeah.
But is it not potentially more truthful than the human experience that we have every day on the street?
Totally.
And only because, like, every day on the street, not only myself, you walk around and we're all pretending like we're presenting to each other what we really are. And none of us, myself included, are.
Yeah.
We adopt these personas in moments, and we have one generalized persona that we've built up over the years and all that stuff. And it's all born from yada, yada, all the experiences, fucking Psych 101, it's such bullshit. But, whereas at least in the dramatic context, there's an agreement with the audience. You go, we're doing a thing here.
Yeah.
We're going to crucify Christ at the end of this story, and we're going to show the repercussions of it that are still directly informing your lives every day, regardless of whether you live in the West or wherever you live. There's an agreement with the audience that it's artifice, but the pledge or the plea or the hope is that at the center of this artifice, you will recognize some truth of your own experience. You will recognize some joy, some hope, some fear, some loss, some grief, something that will just make you feel.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing to be told you're not alone. It's another thing to see, by virtue of a person's empathy, that you're not alone through observation of someone experiencing something that's akin to what you've gone through or what you're afraid of going through. And so I think, when you go to work or whatever, all you're doing is you're taking you're taking your energy and your heart and your head and all that jazz and your life, and you're taking your parents and you're taking your mates and you're taking things you've seen on the news, and you're taking bits of poems you've read and music you've listened to, and you're taking stuff you can't remember and dreams you're writing down. You're taking the whole smorgasbord of all it is to be human, and you're focusing it like really intently as you fall in love with one character.
Yeah.
And that's what I experienced as a kid watching. Like, you asked me earlier, was there one time when the mystery was... I remember Paris, Texas, the first time I saw that.
I love that film.
And it shook me to my core.
Harry Dean Stanton.
Oh my
I
good
mean,
Lord.
Oh my God.
And I mean, Natasha Kinski
Oh
was
my
a close second to
God.
Marilyn Monroe for me.
Oh,
You know,
so beautiful.
I felt so in love with her in that.
But that loneliness as well, you
The
know, and
loneliness
like
of
that scene where he's on the phone and she's behind him in the glass.
And he's about to tell her their story.
Yeah.
And it's so painful that he turns the fucking chair around. He can't... Do you remember? He turns, she's on the other side, and he turns the chair around and she's there. And he starts with, I knew these two people. And Harry Dean goes into, with
Yeah.
all the patience in the world, this story about these two young people who, well, he was quite a bit older than her, but these two young spirits who fell in love with each other and saw like,
Yeah.
and had the most beautiful relationship where everything was turned into magic. And then he articulates over the space of that 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 minute monologue how it all fell apart.
Yeah.
And it was his
Incredible.
sickness being his humanness and his fear.
Yeah.
And it was the first time I was shaken to my core, because until then it was kind of BMXs and a bit of an Amblin, Back to the Future, and, you know, still a perfect film, by the way. That was kind of my cinema diet. And that was the first time, that film, where I was exposed to the depths of sorrow and the pain and also the joy. It's a funny film too. Like his scenes with Hunter, his kid, are fucking brilliant in Paris,
but he
Texas.
was such a like character, you know, just there was no compromising of his humanity.
No.
Whatever way you met him, he wasn't
you say
presenting
lightness of
any
touch.
he's no presenting any idea
He
of
wasn't trying to sell you on a mood.
He
He wasn't trying to sell you on a mood.
And
Being
those
guilty of that
things are-
myself. He wasn't trying to sell you on a mood or a feeling or direct your attention in any particular way.
Yeah. He just smoked a cigarette. Have you ever seen those clips
You've
of
seen
him,
his interviews?
him with David Lynch?
Yeah, they're brilliant.
I mean, if there's ever an advert to take up smoking, it's like watching
I know.
two coolest men that
yeah.
ever walked the planet smoke
Don't watch
together.
State of Grace, by the way. Did you ever see State of Grace with young Sean Penn, Gary Oldman and Robin Wright?
I haven't seen
Oh, it's so good. Came out at the same time as Goodfellas, so it kind of got buried, but it's about gangsters in New York, Irish mob in New York, and the lads are young as fucking the smoke, and my toes were curling. I was looking at it the other night going, Jesus, I'm only off them a year.
How, in talking of gangsters, I like watched Penguin the other day.
Oh, yeah.
You are extraordinary in that.
Thanks, love.
And it's so hard to work in a mask and see such humanity like burst through that. He was so total. Like, I know that man. He
me
like
too,
is down the
inside out.
pub in Kerry. Hopefully not doing the things that you were doing in that. But
that's
the
bar.
weight of him,
2 pints of porter.
and like the hunger of that man, the need of him to like, when he's with his mom, I like, oh my God, but I've never seen somebody so dexterous and so human in a mask. It's definitely not you. But like, if someone was like, that's Colin, if I didn't know it was you, I'd be like, that's James Gandolfini's brother or something.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
But how did you do that?
There was a lot of like talk about dream work and Jungian processes and explorations and stuff. It was a little bit of that as well.
Yeah.
The last thing I want to say is the mask allowed the real me to come out, you know? But I certainly have and have had in my life and have at times. I can feel ugliness in me. I can feel moments of envy, or I can feel anger, and I don't know, I know the anger isn't born of what it says it's being born of in the moment. It's something from fucking there again 7 generations ago, but it's not you, and I'm not blaming you, it's me now, so I'll deal. So all of that stuff, it did give license. Because my face was covered, I was given such permission. I really was. I was hidden. And so through being hidden, through being obscured, I suppose I was greenlit to experience a kind of a revelation.
Wow.
It felt like an absolute revelation. Like I could sit here if I had that makeup on and I could talk to you for 12 hours and not break character. Like,
Yeah.
and I give so much that credit to what Mike Marino's extraordinary design unlocked within me, because I didn't know what I was, when I read the script for the Batman film, the Penguin had 5 scenes and I could see how he served the narrative, but I was like, oh, I don't know what I could bring to it. And then I saw the makeup. I saw the first design of the makeup and I went, I had an uncanny valley. What do you fucking mean? So I'm going to be, but like, that's, really?
And from that moment when you see that,
The first moment I put it on.
really?
Yeah,
And
because
it just like
when I
came-
saw the face, I started to feel a sense of sympathy for, which you have to find something.
but you do.
Something that you can.
love him.
You have to find
I want
something
to
that
go
you
and
can
have a plate of
sympathize
pasta with him and like,
with. And I love that piece of shit, I say without judgment. I love Oz. I love him. And I'd be very protective of him in a way. Like,
yeah.
there was moments where I was going to do it. I was thinking of going on a chat show in the thing and doing, you know, like trying to do a little Andy Kaufman light. And I was thinking that'd be kind of fun and meta.
Yeah.
And then I was like, no, I don't want him to be a joke.
Oh.
I wouldn't take pictures with kids. And if there was kids outside the set, I was like, I don't want to, is there any way? Because I don't want to ever say no to a kid. But I don't want to get pictures of, I don't want to, because it pisses me off how the fourth wall is broken so much now with so much access to behind the scenes this, lift the curtain and see the mystery over and over again. So the 2 weeks that you booked the hotel and you said to your hubby, you know, I'm going to just get this place for these 2 weeks and I'm close and I'm just going to stay close to where I feel the climate is now. I want to stay in this season. So that, obviously, that was really respectful of you to not have to push against and try and overextend. And you're right, it was only 2 weeks and every moment's important, but it was 2 weeks and worth it. 3 o'clock in the morning last night. But there comes a moment, if you're really connected to the story, in my experience, where the life of that, this is the madness part, where the life of that story almost becomes more real than the life you're living outside of it.
And it is.
So you almost have to assume a character outside of the work. Like when you go home, you almost have to I remember times I've gone home and pretend you're dad. Of course you're dad. But you have to, you know, to be present in that. And it nearly takes more effort than the rivers of continuous experience you've gotten used to for 14 or 15 hours a day.
You're spending more time in your day
15 hours a day
in that than
focusing
you are.
on that.
Yeah.
And when you're covered in that and that thing is around your body, it's so powerful.
Yeah.
Tell me about The Bride, because it's a similar
archetypes, but like, you know, these icons of
absolutely.
kind of
Yeah.
another realm.
Yeah. Pop cultural,
Yeah.
cornerstones, yeah.
From the moment I read that, it was like being plugged into an electrical socket of another language. It just ripped through me. I didn't understand it. But the energy of it, I was like, oh my God, okay. And the space of what this character was, the bride that Maggie had created, you know, the iconic iteration of Frankenstein, the bride has no voice and is born as a mate to this monster. You know, and this monster is born out of loss and born out of loneliness for Frankenstein and the doctor and Mary Shelley. And Mary Shelley was this woman of like dark need, dark love, immense loss.
Dark instincts.
And I guess, you know, Maggie was so uncompromising about what is monstrous, what is our capacity to be monsters as humans, as archetypes, and in the vessel of a woman who's born to be a mate, to be a bride, to be a wife, without any autonomy. What might she want to say about that?
Yeah.
And what is too much within this body in a way? And once you get kind of offered the idea of the monstrousness of too muchness or too much life, or the ability to love with being able to hold our most monstrous parts of ourselves. I mean, obviously I'm going to say, okay. It's the biggest canvas I've ever played in, you know.
As far as the scale of the film or the potential of the character to go in all sorts of places.
Both, I mean.
The history of it. All of it.
All of it.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
the scale of it, the history of it, the potential of
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
You know, there was something so recognizable, but also very new, something that had never been given a voice before, and what could be created from just that
It's tasty,
space.
isn't it? Exciting, isn't it?
Yeah. And with Christian Bale, who's, you know,
Extraordinary.
incredible. And I mean, you've worked with him.
Yeah, well, I didn't work with him. He was in the film.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
never had
yeah.
a scene even, but yeah.
You always know you're going to have to meet
Meet him
something
there.
gigantic, you know,
Yeah.
he's a giant.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really intense and broke me and opened me and
Wow.
mind, body, like
Let's see it.
was the wildest, most invigorating, deeply kind of, I just felt like an earthquake in me.
Oh God, I have no idea what to expect, and now I can't wait to see it.
And then I'd like finish in it in 2 weeks, went into Hamnet with like bleached eyebrows, bleached hair, bleached, you know, everything.
And somehow, and not asking for an explanation on exactly how, but somehow one fed into the other, positioned you emotionally and psychologically and experientially in a way to.
I mean, it's about being born, you know, these
Yeah.
things are about a rebirth, a revolution.
Yeah, totally.
Something in the ceiling cracking, some new expression, new language. Like I go from a
Pushed
new
out,
language
pulled
of
towards, pushed out of.
life and death, being reinvigorated,
Yeah.
being transcended from one portal of life to death and
I think
back
that was
and
the
back.
power of the shift that happened within Agnes in those final scenes, in those final moments in the theatre.
Yeah.
The change that happened.
And what we were saying earlier, you know,
It was an evolution of soul. It was kind of like an
Through-
evolution of soul.
love, you know, and the Frankenstein, I mean, Mary Shelley wrote, you know, the creation of the monster is made out of all these broken, I mean, it's such an I mean, Mary Shelley's
God, it really is.
mind to
Quality.
create something born out of the most broken, the mess of
Yeah.
humanity, the detritus, you know, the
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
that we throw away, and to build this creature, and then to be so kind of shocked by your own creation to have to lock it away in an attic. And then what loneliness that breeds, and the revenge that loneliness breeds through humanity. And that he's still hungry for love and comes back 100 years later after being created to seek the love that he never found. And I guess what's ripped through all of this is like what a feat of courage it is to love it all.
Totally.
When you might lose everything.
That's
I
what
mean,
it
it's
is.
so scary
It's
to
to
love.
make an agreement that you really aren't fully aware you're signing up for, that you are going to experience loss and pain at some stage. It's the greatest, it's the most perilous thing in the world
Yeah.
to love somebody and to allow yourself to be loved in return. It's the most perilous thing. Also, obviously, the most beautiful.
Yeah.
But it comes at such a price.
I don't regret it. I love love.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
And I'm a little bit scared of it as well. I was thinking, I was like, what's my first ever image of you in my life? And we've never met really properly. And I feel like we're only beginning a conversation. But I was like, my first image of you in my life is you pouring brown sauce into a cup of tea.
An intermission.
And I was
Brown
like,
sauce.
what? That's disgusting.
You know, sales went up in Ireland there for a while. They really did. Everyone was going in trying brown
But-
sauce with their tea.
I think you're such a beautiful artist, an incredible man. Everybody loves you. And I'm so glad that I've got to meet you.
Thanks,
and
same
I
here.
hope this is just
I
the
don't
beginning
think you're an
of our...
incredible man. I'm not same here that. Thank you. Yeah. With the penguin and it's Oz beneath. My merino's in the corner. I'm so glad to be able to be here with you today. Yeah, and I just love you.
I love you.
Yeah, I do. I love you. I'd only met you a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, for anyone who's actors, lovey, fuck it. I love you. There's no, you
I
know,
love you
and
too.
you're just brilliant. I'm so happy for you. I won't say proud because that's bollocks, but I'm so happy for you that Chloe and you know, that you're supported in the way that you were, and that you went to where you went, because there really is now, and there's mad healing in this film. And some films I love just films that are just there for entertainment.
Yeah.
And I have experienced as an 8-year-old, as a 14-year-old, as a 20-year-old, as a 30, healing watching films. I've experienced fucking permission, I've experienced forgiveness, I've felt compassion, empathy, love, all of it. And there's massive amounts of all the above in this. So, you know, you and Paul and Chloe and it's the young gentleman who played
Jack Beach.
Hamnet, Jack.
Yeah.
He's just beautiful, and I'm so happy for you. I'm so happy for you, Jessie. I love you,
Thank
and
you.
thanks for today. Thanks for letting me come and have a chat with you.
Thank you.